Hello, hello, welcome on this beautiful Friday morning. I'm Dr. Cass Spencer-Smith and I'm from Private Practice Ninja, and if you're joining us on the replay, welcome too. It would be great to hear where you are at the moment, so put a little hello in the chat and let us know where you are in the UK or indeed around the world. So, if we haven't met, I'm Dr. Cass. We are a Private Practice Ninja company and we look after doctors, surgeons, physios, osteos and podiatrists to help them grow a successful private practice. And in these little Friday breakfast, or maybe desk-fast as I call it, so where you're having a breakfast at your desk, we all do it, don't we? I'd like to bring to you some tips and tricks for growing a successful private practice. So this week we're going to be talking all about quick wins for getting patients back into clinic. What I mean by that is stuff you literally can do today to get patients into clinic next week, okay? So what we're going to be talking about is 5 key things you can do, which is not going to cost you anything except a tiny bit of time, and how those 5 tips can help you to get patients back in if you're feeling a bit nervous. So we all have quiet times in private practice, but what I want you to really first of all reflect on is this actually a quiet time? So what do I mean by that? Well, when the whole COVID pandemic thing started, everyone got out of sync. So in the past, people might have gone on holiday at half term with their kids, so it might have been quiet then. They may have gone away skiing, they may have gone away on the summer holidays, and around Christmas time, things pretty much shut down, right? But COVID came along and people had this sort of blended year. We've had 2 of those blended years. And so you might be thinking, oh no, there's no patients. When actually, it just happens to be that it is a quiet time of the year. So how do you know if it's truly quiet or not? This is where knowing your numbers comes in. So if you have a practice management software system, chances are you can pull down a tiny bit of data and just draw a wiggly graph of patients coming in each clinic week. And you'll be able to reflect back last year and think, hang on a minute, there was a dip then. Or actually, do you know what, it really is quiet? So if you're worried about how your practice is doing and you need to get some patients into clinic, let's think about those top tips. So the first thing I want you to do is go to your clinic diary, and I want you to open up the diary and look back over 3 to 4 months. So we're now currently very beginning of March. I want you to go back to say the beginning of November. This is going to take you about an hour to do, but I guarantee it, if you do it, that you are going to get 2, maybe 3 patients into clinic by doing this, and that's going to be worth that hour. And let's face it, if it's quiet, you've got the time, right? We've all had quiet times. So I'm going to call these the bread and butter patients. So these are patients that you know really should have come back to clinic, but somehow they've just sort of skipped off somewhere. So it might be that you sent them for a test or investigation and then they got COVID and so it never got set up, or they got COVID so they didn't come back to clinic, or maybe now they're off skiing and they've been taking their time thinking about whether or not they should take you up on the offer of the thing you suggested they should do, i.e. an investigation or a procedure. So go back through the diary. If you genuinely think you don't have time to do this, or you're going to do a poor job of it, if you have some admin staff, let them help you. So you're going to go through and skim off these patients you know you should be seeing, okay? So perhaps you only saw them for 2 sessions of physio and they've gone somewhere. You're going to get in touch with them. Chances are you're already doing this. Great, but if you're not, fix this one first. Go after those bread and butter patients. The next set of patients I want you to go after are the ones you probably discharged and you would assume are doing well. We're going to call these the jam on toast people, because it is breakfast after all. And who are those people? They're patients that you've perhaps taken through a treatment cycle. They've had their surgery, they've got their COVID chest better, they've got their bunion better, maybe their depression has lifted. And you might think, why on earth do I want to go bother those poor people who are probably already doing okay? It's going to feel like I'm nagging them. Quite the opposite. This is a win-win for 2 reasons. So the first reason is if they're doing badly or not as well as you would like them to be doing, you can say, you can do stuff about that. So if you reach out to them with an email saying, hi, just wondering how that ankle got on after, the London Marathon. And they might say, well, do you know what, it's still really causing me a bit of a niggle and it's a shame because I've got, some fantastic American marathon coming up in October and I want to be ready for that. Well, we can help. Let's set up an appointment. Or if they are doing splendidly, and hopefully they are, you've got a great opportunity there to be able to ask them for a testimonial saying, oh, I'm so pleased you got around London great. Do you know what? I really like helping people like yourself. Do you think there's any chance you could do me a little testimonial? Bet you they say yes. So you'll either get them back into the clinic or you're likely to get a testimonial. So it's worth the time to connect with the jam on toast people. But this is the one I think that people, and certainly I've very much been guilty of this in the past, is what do we do about self-funding patients? Many clinicians I meet are worried about asking self-funding patients to come back to clinic. We're going to call these the pan perdu, the lost bread patients, okay? So when patients are self-funding, there's this weird vibe that we sometimes have around us as clinicians, probably because we've worked in the NHS and we're thinking, I can't ask them to keep spending the money to come back to clinic. Patients want to invest in their healthcare. And I use a very good example of this. It may be that you are, say, a physio or an osteo, and you've got a patient who's had an ACL reconstruction. And, you know, they've been given a piffling amount of allowance from their insurer. Those 4 sessions have run out, and now they are required to self-fund if they want to continue on their treatment journey. So a lot of the time, what doesn't happen is that expectations around following up, coming back into clinic, that conversation never takes place. So instead of saying, right, okay, so to get you better, we're going to be meeting perhaps 3 or 4 times now once a week, and then after that, maybe 3 or 4 more times every fortnight. And by this stage, I'd expect you to be able to do this and your knee looking like that. And then when we get to this stage here, we're going to be talking about, you know, return to running program. And patients then say, great, this person really understands where I should be going, and they've got my back because they know if it's not working out here, we're going to change direction over there. What happens instead, however, is that people say, okay, we'll see how it's going next time, or if you've got any problems, come back. And the problem with that is it's a very poor way to do medicine. We're so worried about patients investing in their own healthcare, and it's usually our hang-ups. They want to get better, right? They want to get back to running. But what happens instead is we say to them, come back if you're not very happy. And what happens is the patient just drifts off. So patients are often poor judges of what their progress should be. And that's fair enough. They don't really have a yardstick to measure it against, do they? So they don't really know that they're not necessarily going as quickly as they should be. And using that ACL patient as an example, I see many of these people in clinic whose sort of progression is stalled because they think something is fundamentally wrong. In other words, the knee's trash, they can never get back to running. When actually it was just because they didn't have enough finishing school physio, as it were, to get back to doing their sport. So be brave and reach out to these people. And if you're thinking, how do I do that? Because they have been a bit cost sensitive. What I would say is I'd find that patient, I'd connect with them in the way that you're normally used to connecting with them. So it might be that you're used to having email conversations, or it could be that you are somebody who classically picks up the phone, which is great. And you could say, I'm just wondering how you're coming along. Maybe you found that you've not quite got back to running yet. If so, now is a great time for us to meet again for a review in clinic. And then you can pick up again with that story, as it were, about we're going to be seeing you here and here and here and here, okay? Most patients will want to rejoin with you, especially if they realise that something else could be done for them. And the crazy thing is that you would think that a patient who isn't getting better would reach out to you. But does that happen? No. What tends to happen is that the patient that isn't getting better goes, well, I'm not getting better, I'm not going back. And whereas you're wanting to say, but we could do something about that. So if you had a patient who, say, had an injection, wobbled off somewhere, hasn't come back to clinic, and they're self-funding, bring them back. It's the right way to be treating patients. And my final little tip about that area is that you probably know you're falling into this trap if you're treating your self-funding patients differently to the way that you treat your insured patients. So have a little think about that. Are you happy to keep bringing back your Bupa AXA, WPA patients regularly, but you feel a bit nervous about bringing back your self-funding patients? You need to make both of those patients the same treatment journey, okay? So bring in your self-funders, bring in your pan-perdus. And now I want to talk about tapping into some of the connections that you already have. So it's not about winning over new patients on this occasion, it's about working with existing patients. So if you've had patients that you've worked with who are what I call like the super connectors, or patients that you've done a really good job for, you can go and ask them for a referral. Now, let's call these patients, these referral patients, avocado on toast patients, because we all have a bit of that. I want you to remember that it's okay to ask a patient you've done a really good job for to refer another patient potentially. So I'm going to say that again. I want you to know your value, and I want you to understand that it's okay to ask a patient you've done a really good job for to refer you another patient in the future. And you might be thinking, oh, how do I do that? Well, you're going to have some patients that you've recently done a really good job for, or patients that you've seen on multiple occasions who you know adore you. And I know you have patients who adore you, yeah? So think of one of those patients who adores you, and it might be that they have done something recently. It might be that they've had their hip replaced. They finally got back to seeing their grandchildren because the COVID restrictions have lifted and they're past surgery. And you could reach out to them saying, oh, I'm just wondering what it's like now with your new hip, now that you can get on the floor and play with your granddaughter. Oh, it's marvellous, yeah. Perhaps you could think of me if you ever have any other friends or colleagues or neighbours, who might need a hip replacement, because I've really enjoyed looking after you. And if they don't sort of strike a balance with that, what you can sometimes do is also say, or maybe you'd like to leave me a testimonial. So never miss the opportunity to ask for a testimonial and reach out to them. You're not pestering them by reaching out to them, because you're going there with the intent to inquire how they are doing. And of course you want to know that. It's really interesting. A lot of the time we forget to ask patients to come back to clinic so that we can hear that they're doing well. It's somehow that we only say to them, come back if there's a problem, but we should be hearing more often that they're doing brilliantly. So don't forget to ask patients for potential referrers. Do it in a way that feels like I'm reaching out to offer help to other people who are just like you, who love doing the things that you love doing, so that I can help them as well. Yeah. So think about those avocado on toast patients. Now, you're going to have patients as well that are referred by your referral network, right? So if it's been a while since you've heard from somebody, one of your kind of key referrers, and let's call these patients the bacon butty patients. Okay, what I want you to do is go back and think, or make a short list, perhaps of 10 people who've referred you patients in the past. Now, this always feels a bit odd for people to do, because sometimes people think, if I reach out to that person, they're going to think, oh, she's a bit desperate, or her practice is flailing around and it's not doing very well. Not at all, because here's the thing. I may remember that you're the go-to person for this thing, but after a while, being a bear of small brain, I'm probably going to forget, or that little connection gets a little bit lost. And a lot of the time during COVID, clinicians, certainly in the therapies, got really scattered. So I have my practice at the Shard in London, and the number of physios that went off to the countryside was impressive, okay? And I didn't really know where they were, or that company might have furloughed them and then they've decided, I'm going to set up on my own, this is so much better. And we've sort of lost those connections. So if you reach out to those clinicians and you could say something like, that chap I saw last summer that you very kindly referred to me, do you know what, this spring he's run a fantastic marathon, his chest is so much better, just wanted to let you know he's doing well. And also to let you know that I have capacity in my clinic at the moment. And just to remind you that I'm here at the Shard, I'm there on Mondays and Tuesdays. This is how a patient can connect with me. And remind them of things that you do. It sounds really obvious, but remind them of things that you do, especially if your niche has maybe altered a bit. So lots of clinicians I see now are seeing patients that have a sort of COVID link with them. So even in my own practice, I'm seeing more kind of upper body people, as well as my hip patients who've got chest related symptoms, MSK symptoms, as a result of having COVID. So I may say to them, do you know what, you know me for hips and groins, fantastic, but if you've also got triathletes who've got chest pain because it's an MSK thing, post-COVID, I'm your gal sort of thing. So you could reach out to them via an email. If you're connected with them on LinkedIn, don't forget, LinkedIn's a fabulous way of leaving like a little video just on your phone saying, hi, just letting you know, some of our mutual patients are doing absolutely brilliantly. I've got clinic capacity. If your patients are struggling to get in elsewhere because there's no physios in town, send them to me, sort of thing. So be brave, reach out, just do it for 2 or 3 people. I guarantee you're going to get somebody being referred to, because they'll suddenly go, but of course. And then my bonus tip, after you've gone after the bread and butter, the bread and jam, the pain perdu, the etc. avocados and etc. bacon butty patients, is to go for the longer term patients that you have lost. So if you have a GDPR compliant email list, and hopefully you do, and don't worry if you don't, because we'll loop back to that on another occasion, I want you to go for the full English patients. These are patients that you can win back who've been lost to other places. So coming back to the whole COVID point, if you've had a patient that you maybe worked with, but they've probably gone around the corner, let's say for physio, on their doorstep because of COVID, they may then have sort of formed a relationship with a local physio. You could win them back. So what you can do is you can send out to your email list a reminder of where you are and what you're doing, and particularly giving reference to the fact that they could come and have some treatment now they're back in town 3 days a week. Yeah, lots of firms are bringing people back into town Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Sometimes it's structured, sometimes you know they're going to be in Wednesday, Thursday, Friday because of whatever their personal preference is. So you can send out lists send out a broadcast to your email list and say something like, just letting you know clinic's open, and also because we're coming into marathon season, if you've got any of those niggles that really held you back last time, let's get them sorted now so it's not going to get in the way of you turning up on race day. And remind them where you are. Don't make them hunt for the contact details. Put it very specifically. Book an appointment here, connect with me here, give me a ring here to book an appointment, etc. So reach out for your full English patients by emailing your patients. You might worry that you're sending them emails too frequently. I can guarantee that can never happen. So unless you're emailing them daily, which is extremely unlikely, I've never met a clinician that has enough gumption to do that, but if you're emailing patients daily, you might be pestering them a little bit. But let's think about it. If you only email your patient list once a month and that patient misses that month's email, it's going to be 2 months before they hear from you. So don't be afraid to email them. Don't be afraid to remind them of what it is that you do best, and constantly reinforce how they can connect with you. So I hope that's given you a little bit of thinking around what you can do this week to get patients in for next week. I'm Dr. Cass Spencer-Smith at Private Practice Ninja, and if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I would love to hear more about the things you're struggling with in private practice and some of the questions that we can answer. So I wish you a fantastic Friday, and we'll see you next time. Bye.